InfoCredit Professional Education, empowering professionals.
We are happy to have with us Stylianos Christoforou, a very good partner of us, associate. As a lawyer, Stylianos possesses an outstanding legal expertise in a wide spectrum of practices. His expertise lies especially in assisting enterprises with the legal challenges they face. Stylianos handled direct and indirect issues on a broad range of business matters, principally relating to corporate governance, tax issues, corporate transactions, mergers and acquisitions, personal data protection, investment recovery cases, and employment law. Stylianos is the retained legal advisor of a number of renowned large and medium-sized Cyprus enterprises and has, as a result, developed an expertise in consulting enterprises in all areas of the law that affect their functionality and governance. Stylianos has recently enriched his expertise by becoming one of the very few lawyers in Cyprus to be a GDPR practitioner through special training he has received abroad. Today, with his team, he has completed 6-day GDPR compliance projects in Cyprus, Greece, and Romania. These projects include insurance companies, hospitals, universities, schools, trading companies, and hotels. His exposure to the corporate governance, GDPR, and employment-related projects, along with the court cases he has handled, provided him with an expertise that is very rare to find. Stylianos is also sharing this expertise with entrepreneurs through training seminars he delivers in Cyprus, Greece, Romania, and the UAE. Just before the presentation starts, I would like to share some important administrative notes about the webinar. Please test your connection, of course, and audio prior start. You can do it until Stylianos starts. Please place your name and surname so that to ensure participation. And please submit your question via the Q&A box. The question will be answered by order of receipts and will be answered either live throughout the presentation or during the 15-minute Q&A session upon the completion of the presentation. Instructors will respond to question addressed after the allocated Q&A time via email, and the certificate of attendance will be sent to your email address. The webinar is recorded and the video of the presentation will be published on the IP website. If you experience any technical issues, please contact info@ipin.com.cy or call at the number already entered on the chat box. Thank you very much. Stylianos?
Yes. Thank you very much, Panagiotis. Hello to everybody. Happy New Year. Challenging times indeed, but it is always very promising, the fact that people, individuals, entrepreneurs will find a way for business continuity. And what we're having now is a business continuity achievement. I mean that instead of, because of the coronavirus, actually not doing any kind of trainings, we are having online trainings. And this is mostly because of the digitalization. Digitalization has entered our world, our lives, the recent years, and it began with the mobile phones. If you recall, back in 2000, with the mobile phone, you could actually do that, which would be to call someone or send a text message. Nowadays, you can check your bank balance, you can make a transfer, you can upload photos, you can chat with people, you can write emails, send them, receive, and so on. You can even turn on and off your TV. You can turn on and off your air condition through that. And all these functions that you can do through your mobile phone, but not even, I'm not talking about the phone, of course, I'm talking about the fact that you can do those actions. They all relate to digitalization. Digitalization was the greatest industrial boom of our century. And it was a much needed experience. However, that digitalization has brought up certain needs. One of these needs was the fact that data, because of the digitalization, is being shared now very, very easily, to an extent that somebody would say without any kind of scrutiny. So what should the lawmakers do is obviously create an environment under which this processing of the data within the digital era is monitored. And let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say that in an enterprise back in 2000, that enterprise would actually keep the data of its employees saved into folders, physical folders in cabinets. And the safety measures back then for a data breach, which would be for somebody to take that file and either view it or use it or steal it, would be to lock that cabinet. And the second level of protection would be to lock the office the cabinet was sitting in. Nowadays, we may keep as companies, as enterprises, a certain number of files as physical. However, especially for the employees, I think most of us will agree that what we'll do is that we create a digital file, a file which is on the server or on the cloud. What does that mean? It means that we have a folder which is called employees list, and in that folder we have a subfolder for each employee, and in that subfolder we have all the documents that relate to that employee. So we have done it from physical to digital. Now, when it was physical, we would safeguard it by locking the cabinet, and as I said, the office the cabinet was in. Question here is, how do we safeguard the digital version? That's where GDPR kicks in. GDPR basically has, as you must already know, has imposed the obligation to the enterprises to comply with its provisions. GDPR means General Data Protection Regulation. So we're talking about a regulation. We don't talk about a law, just a law. It's a regulation. It is pan-European and to a level worldwide effect. And it is a regulation which has been implemented in Cyprus automatically in May 2018, and every company needs to comply. My expertise in that, and that's the reason why I'm before you now, is the fact that I kind of like the personal data protection, and therefore I decided I would like to visit that deeper. So what I did, apart from studying the regulation itself, I went to a training course abroad, and then I have created a team, and with that team we were offering, and we still do, compliance projects to enterprises. Now, what is a GDPR compliance project? Why do I say that? Because that will be connected to the DPO that is the subject matter of our discussion today. So, compliance project is the stage in the compliance of the company that should take actions, make the necessary amendments in order to be compliant with the GDPR. So the GDPR is not just a law which says you are allowed to do this and you are not allowed to do that. The GDPR is a law which says that you are allowed to process data under certain preconditions, but you also have the obligation to take the adequate organizational and technical measures. And it also says that in order for you to take the adequate organizational and technical measures, you obviously need to know what kind of data you process. And once you know what kind of data you process, the next thing to do is to be able to justify as to why you process them. And once you are ready to justify as to why you process them, the next thing to do as an enterprise is to explain as to who has access to those data. And when you have explained that, you have to be able to analyze as to who has access and for how long do you keep those data and when do you delete those data. So there's actually a practical side of the GDPR, and that is called compliance. Within this compliance, the enterprises also have to review all their legal documents which relate to personal data. They have to pinpoint who are their vendors, who are the associates they work with, and they also have to share data within their relation and within the activities they are performing. And they also must be ready to inform those data, as to how and why they process the data, and they are also as to their rights, because under the GDPR, every person of whom the enterprise processes data, which means every data subject, as the law calls them, has rights. So the enterprises have to make sure that they can fulfill those rights. After that, you need to, the company, the enterprise, in the compliance stage, once again, needs to identify the risks and needs to run a data privacy impact assessment. And then lastly, needs to appoint a data protection officer, the DPO. So the first thing to do today is to analyze what the data protection officer does. Obviously, appointing a data protection officer does not prove compliance. Appointing a data protection officer is an obligation which ticks one of the boxes with regard to compliance. The reason I pinpoint on that is because back in 2018, there was this myth that once you appoint a DPO, you are GDPR compliant. That's a myth. The reality is that the enterprise, pay attention to this, the enterprise has to become compliant and then appoint a DPO if needed. I know Panagiotis said that you can ask questions at the end. However, if you need to ask a question as I go along, I will be happy to be interrupted and reply to that question. And you can ask that question through the Q&A box, or you may also talk to us, to me. So, now, once again, let's say that we have, moving on, I'm sorry, let's say that we have completed the compliance stage. We did what we had to do as per the GDPR. And now we have to appoint the DPO. The first question that we need to ask ourselves is, what does the DPO do? So the DPO will monitor and maintain the company's compliance with the GDPR. the DPO will monitor that all the policies adopted in the compliance stage with the GDPR are adhered to. It will update and advise the company and the employees. And it will advise on the performance of the data privacy impact assessment. So these are the four main pillars that you expect as an enterprise the DPO to do. These also are the four main pillars which cause the problems to the DPO. Today's webinar bears the title DPO Soft Skills. Now, why does the DPO need soft skills? Because the DPO is a controversial position. The DPO is the person that will advise as to how to continue to be compliant with the GDPR, and at the same time, it will advise us how it is best to protect the personal data. It is worldwide known that the easiest advice is don't do it. That advice, however, creates also a problem for the advisor. What's the problem? The problem is that the person that advises, that receives the advice, which is don't do anything, is that person will lose trust to that person, to the advisor. So therefore, it is very important to understand that the DPO needs to advise, needs to analyze, needs to update both the enterprise and the employees. What is more, the DPO must have direct communication with the Office of the Commissioner for the Protection of Personal Data. So it is not anybody within the company who will communicate with the commissioner if needed. It is only the DPO. Why is that? Because the commissioner takes for granted that the DPO knows about the GDPR, so they speak the same language. Another task that the DPO is expected to do is to maintain the data flow mapping. The data flow mapping is the most valuable and the most important deliverable of the GDPR. It's the most important tool of the DPO, and also the most important tool for the enterprise, because that is where all the processes that involve personal data are mentioned, are analyzed, and as a result, easily and efficiently somebody can locate where a mistake may have happened. It's also important for another reason, for the fact that if you don't have a data flow mapping, as an enterprise, that is a criminal offense, which is punishable up to 3 years of imprisonment or up to €50,000 fine. Another issue that the DPO deals is that it needs to delegate responsibilities to coordinate GDPR trainings, because it is very important to train, and also advise the enterprise on what technical and organizational measures the company should take. What are the technical and organizational measures? Again, the technical measures are any measure taken of a technical nature, for example, having a firewall on the server, or having a end-to-end encryption, or using a difficult password which is to be changed every 6 weeks. The organizational measures now are the measures that relate to trainings, relate to agreements with the employees, agreements with the associates, and anything that relates basically to the actions of the personnel and not technical. The DPO will also undertake a sub-project which is to identify the retention periods per processing. How we'll do that? By reading the data flow mapping, we'll identify that certain processes need to be, the data from certain processes need to be deleted, and therefore needs to understand as to when those processes should be deleted. Deletion is one of the key factors of GDPR, is one of the most important things that one must know. The DPO will also arrange for the actual destruction, and also the DPO is the one who is responsible in case of a data breach to run a diagnostic in order to understand whether that data breach was serious or not, or that as to whether that data breach should be reportable to the Commissioner for the Protection of Personal Data or not. Obviously, all these topics are topics that are analyzed in greater depth and with the provision of examples, case law examples from the commissioners, or from personal cases that we have dealt with at the seminar, at the actual seminar, which is, as Panagiotis will inform you, is to be announced, and it will be for a 14-hour seminar. So, next question. Who is to be appointed as a DPO? The DPO is not just anybody, and this brings us to the gist of this meeting. DPO cannot be just anybody. The DPO is anyone who can meet the below technical criteria, and on the following slides you will see another set of criteria as well. First of all, the DPO cannot be someone who holds a C position. Now, what is a C position? The C positions are the ones that I've mentioned here, which are Chief Executive Officer, Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Medical Officer, Head of Marketing Department, Head of HR, Head of IT. These individuals in a company cannot be the DPO. Why? Because the DPO cannot be a decision maker. And do you know why the DPO cannot be a decision maker? Because if, for example, the DPO is the financial controller, and the DPO says that, and as DPO realizes that we need to train our employees again for the GDPR, either because there is a need or because we have to do a follow-up training, because the GDPR says that trainings should take place at least every 18 months in an enterprise on GDPR. But if he is the financial controller as well, it means that he has to think in two different ways with two different mindsets. The mindset of the financial controller will say, do I have the time and the money now to arrange a training, which is going to take them 6 hours of their work? The mindset of the DPO will say they need to be retrained. They need to follow up this topic. So there will be conflict. Therefore, it cannot be a decision maker, because otherwise there is a conflict of interest. So the first important that you need to pencil down is that the DPO cannot have a conflict of interest, and therefore cannot be a decision maker or a C position. Thereon, the DPO must have a sound knowledge of the regulation. We are not talking about mere knowledge. We are not talking about knowledge. We are talking about sound knowledge. So we're not talking about just reading it. We're not talking about just dealing with it by searching the internet. We're talking about sound knowledge, because that soundness to the knowledge of the DPO, that is exactly the point, will gain the respect of the remaining enterprise. And that is the first and most important soft skill that must have. It is not actually a soft skill, it's knowledge, but I put it down as first in this for this position. If the DPO doesn't have the necessary knowledge, the adequate knowledge, it means that the remaining employees who will be challenging his or her directions, he will not be able to respond back and explain the reason why he gave that direction. And what's the immediate result? Conflict. They will bypass him, they will move up to the management ladder, and eventually that company will not have a DPO. It will have an appointed DPO, but in essence, it will be just a mere position. Within the knowledge, the DPO needs to understand how the enterprise and the industry of the enterprise is operating. That is crucial, because every industry has its own peculiarities. So the legal industry has certain peculiarities, the insurance industry has others, the health service industry is different. So the industry has its own peculiarities. Therefore, the DPO needs to know the industry and the enterprise is operating in. He must also has an understanding of IT technologies. We don't expect him to be an IT expert, but he must have certain knowledge. At this point, I have to make a note that DPO can be anyone, irrespective of his educational background. At no point anybody said that the DPO has to be a lawyer. At no point anybody said that the DPO has to be somebody who has a management degree, nor an IT degree. The GDPR is a multitasking and multidisciplined topic. So you need someone who knows a bit of everything. And that's why having sound knowledge of the regulation is so crucial. If the DPO is an employee, an existing employee, it is very, very important for that employee to have time to perform his duties. Every time I say that to my live presentations, I see smiling coming from the audience. I don't see it now because I can't view you since the cameras are off. So I understand, but I can have a picture as to your reaction. It is very important, however, for the DPO to have time, because if he has time, it means that he's dedicated, and as a result, he gains again on the respect issue, because he is a good DPO. Now, second pillar of who may be a DPO is the following soft skills. Integrity. We're talking about someone who takes his position very, very responsibly. He's ready to make the extra mile, even though this will create a conflict. So mind you that the DPO could be the number 2 of the IT department, or it could be the number 2 of the HR department. However, when the HR department, I'm giving you an example that that I have dealt with some time ago, but if the HR department, let's say, decides that wants to go to make a special tool on which every employee will upload their data, and through that tool application, every employee would be able to comment on other employees' work, something like an evaluation thing, but more relaxed and more day-to-day. Now, this is something a company wanted to do, which was very nice for HR point of view. However, the DPO said, hold on a minute. What if one employee starts accusing another employee on that app? Aren't we giving them the tool to start chit-chatting and accusing each other? Because in every environment, despite that every enterprise, the employees should be, and I'm sure to a great extent are a team, even in teams there are conflicts. So the DPO, who was the second to the HR, said, you cannot do that. So imagine the conflict. The HR department wants to do something innovative, and the number two, not the number one, the number two, who is the DPO, says no and blocks them. So there must be integrity. He must also have the element of being a whistleblower, that he won't mind to report someone to the management that is not actually following what needs to follow. He must also be transparent on his advice and on what he's actually doing, because there is the tendency for DPOs to maintain a secrecy as to what is they are doing, so the enterprise will not understand basically how they are acting. They must have the ability to transfer knowledge, because that once again enhances the credibility of the DPO, and must also be able to advise and support the advice provided. So the DPO is not just anybody. The DPO is a person who has skills, and he's a person who has skills. I'm sorry, I'm taking this back because I've pressed it by mistake. So the DPO is a person who must have skills. And these soft skills are the skills that will basically help him to exercise, to do his task better. These are the skills that we will be talking about and we will be training in order to enhance to the DPOs that we will be attending our seminar, and also giving them live examples as to how to deal with each incident within the company. And I'm not talking about data breach incidents. I'm talking about incidents that relate to conflicts between them and the management, or between them and other employees. Another example, just to show you what do I mean. One year ago, there was this incident where an insurance company decided to run a marketing campaign. So what did they do is that they have decided to, I have a question. Yes, Panayota, I'll get back to you in 1 minute. So this insurance company has decided to run a marketing campaign, so they decided to do the following. They decided to ask the IT department to create something that would, to develop something that will create all the numbers, or the 8-digit numbers, which begin from numbers 97, 99, 96. Now, 8-digit numbers beginning from 97, 96, 99 are mobile phone numbers here in Cyprus. So by the pressing of a button, 3,900,000 numbers were created. And those numbers, they took them, this company, and they have sent SMS. Out of these close to 4 million SMS that were sent, 25,000 actually received the message. The message obviously was saying, we're a good insurance company, come to us, double the average. some of them reported the incident, some of the individuals that were the owners of those numbers were reported the incident to the commissioner. The commissioner initiated an investigation. And that's it. And the first point of reference was the DPO. So the commissioner informed the DPO as to what was that, give me a report. The DPO had no idea about this. So he decided to ask the head of the marketing department as to what happened. The head of the marketing department, when he realized that the commissioner contacted them to report that some individuals reported them for data breach, got really angry. So what did he do? He called the commissioner himself. And not only he called the commissioner himself, the line of argument, now we're talking about the marketing manager, just to remind. And not just that he called the commissioner himself, who should have been the DPO, he also put forward the argument that everybody's doing it. What's the problem if we do it as well? What was the result of this? It was the result that the commissioner fined that company with €5,000 penalty. It could have been avoided if somebody could have informed the DPO, but they didn't because they said that, okay, it's just someone. They could have asked the advice of the DPO as to what to do or how to do it. And if they have done that by that time, I'm sure that they wouldn't have any problems. But even if they had problems with reportings, they could have justified their position better. So the most important problem the DPOs will face is the fact that the remaining employees within the enterprise will underestimate them. And that is why they need the soft skills in order to gain their respect, in order to follow the advice, and for the enterprise to remain compliant and safe from reportings, penalties, and most importantly, bad reputation. Panagiotis is asking me whether I believe that an AML code can or should be a DPO as well. It's a rather usual question, to be honest. I am not very in favor of appointing the AML officer as a DPO. However, if we take the criteria set down by the GDPR, it doesn't say that the AML officer is not to be appointed as DPO. My only worry with the AML officer is that they already have too much work to do anyhow, and they cannot run the DPO function as well. Other than that, if they have the knowledge, I'm sure they also have the mindset to do it. It's a matter of time, however. Any other questions? Live or not? Christo Agapiou is asking, in a big organization, apart from the DPO, what is a good number of people working with him or her? Well, Christo, that's a very nice question. Depending on the organization. So if let's say that we're talking about a bank, the appointed DPO of a bank is one person, but it's also surrounded by a team. So at the bank level, I would expect to be the DPO and a team of another 5 or 6 individuals who will have expertise on GDPR, on IT, on legal, and so on. Now, if the organization is not that big, or if the organization has offices in Cyprus and abroad, I would again suggest one DPO, but have liaisons in the other cities. 2,000 to 3,000 employees. So yes, we're talking about as big as a bank. Yes, I would, Chriso, recommend a team which would be a person appointed as DPO, and that DPO is best to be trained. And by trained, I mean attend a 40, 60-hour training seminar, not just a 14-hour one. And then to be surrounded by a team. To be surrounded by a team of at least 5 people in order to manage all that group. So now, obviously we have said that the DPO needs to prove herself in order to gain respect, so they can actually people begin to trust him and follow his leads. However, it is very important that the DPO is not working on his own to gain the trust. It is very important that the management passes the message to the whole of the enterprise that that's the DPO, you listen to the DPO because we said so. It is very important for every employee to have the culture to support the DPO and not to judge him or her, and must also be provided with access to all the departments of the enterprise, big or small, in order to be able to execute his duties better. But because it begins from the management, I repeat myself by saying that it is very, very important for the management to introduce, to support the appointment, and to make all the other employees understand the criticality of the role. If the management does not that, then the DPO starts with a very big difficulty in trying to accept, to persuade what to the employees and the management of the enterprise that he is the one to listen to and not to whatever they think it's best to do. Okay, so that was all from me. I think I have covered my time. I hope I didn't tire you too much. I am happy to answer your questions, which again, you can ask them live or through the chat box.
Okay, dear participants, we have now come to the end of this presentation. The video of the presentation will soon be publicly available on our website, InfoCredit Professional Education website. A certificate of attendance will be sent to your email address after the end of the webinar. So we hope that we have met your expectations, that you found this webinar interesting. It is very important for us to receive from your part some insight about the webinar. So please take some time to complete the feedback online survey. Already send the link in the chat box. Thank you again for attending the webinar. Enjoy the rest of the day and the afternoon. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you, Stylianos.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
InfoCredit Professional Education, empowering professionals.